right, let's talk about Chapter 15, Informative Speaking. This is a great chapter because next week you're going to record your informative speech for us to view. So let's pay close attention as we go through some guidelines. Informative speech is the only key concept term in this chapter, and it's just showing us that the purpose of these speeches, these informative speeches, is to increase your audience knowledge, their understanding, or their abilities concerning your topic. So let's look at 8 guidelines for giving a great informative speech. First, begin with a clear thesis. And if you understand what your purpose is and what you want your audience to learn, then you'll have a better chance of actually accomplishing that purpose and conveying that to us. So write out a clear thesis statement. And then make sure you can connect with your listeners. At the very beginning in your introduction, make them feel like you want to give the speech and you're excited about the topic, and maybe discuss why you chose the topic and what it means to you. And then go ahead and motivate your listeners to want this information. Why should they watch your speech? Why should they even care? How will this information improve their lives? That's what we all want to know. That's why infomercials are so good at what they do. And then motivate number 4, and then build credibility. Let your listeners know that you have experience on this topic and that you have additionally researched outside information to make you an expert for the next 5 or 6 minutes as you talk to them. And adapt to the speaking situation, and these will be recorded so there won't be as much adaptation necessary, but if you're aware of perhaps my or someone else's question concerning your topic, go ahead and address that in your speech and let the listeners know that you are concerned about them and you want to help them improve their knowledge. And number 6, organize your speech. We are looking at organizational patterns in the discussion board this week, going back to chapter 14. And so it's very important as a speaker to have that organization and to convey that to your listeners. You've got to use transitions. You can weave yourself from point to point with these verbal indicators for my next point and in conclusion, and let your listeners follow your organizational pattern using transitions, because they cannot see when you've indented a new paragraph when you are speaking these ideas to them. So let your speech flow with transition words. And then let's go on with number 7, enhancing learning. So there are ways to enhance the learning of your audience. I almost said students, but in effect, you are a teacher and your audience can be considered your students. And so you want to limit the amount of information that you can present. These are short speeches, so we cannot absorb a lot of info. So choose carefully and wisely, and make sure you repeat the key concepts that you want us to remember, because if you repeat them, your audience might remember them. And highlight key information that you want. Bring attention to it by saying, "This is very important," or "Remember this." And that will help your audience really pick up on the importance of one aspect of your speech. Make sure that you start with the familiar, what your audience is already accustomed to and used to and what they already know, and then move on to the new material, the unfamiliar that they may not be aware of, the reason that you are talking to them. And also, you're going to be using multiple communication channels because you are required to use visual aids in this speech, and so that will only enhance your audience's understanding of the material. The last thing, number 8, is to involve your listeners. Now, you are limited in your ways that you can involve your listeners since this is a recorded speech, but you can still involve your audience. You can do that through rhetorical questions that you ask. Use those rhetorical questions in your introduction. And you could poll your listeners beforehand through the discussion board. I think that would be a great tactic to really see what your audience already knows and involve that information during your speech, even though it was gathered before the speech. Because this is a situation where you know who's going to be sitting in your audience, even though they'll be in different locations viewing at different times. You cannot really rely on audience participation since we will not be there in the room with you. However, you can refer to specific listeners. If someone makes a comment on the discussion board on your topic and you want to refer to them in a positive light, of course, during your speech, I think that would be great and a great way to involve the audience, even though we are limited by distance and time. I'm looking forward to these speeches, as you already know, and let me know if I can help you as you begin writing them, and you can go ahead and get on Cengage MindTap and work on those outlines.